Welcome to the Leaders on Point podcast, where we help you unlock your leadership success. In this podcast, we will empower you with the right skills to lead with confidence, increase your influence, and become successful in your career and beyond. I'm your host, Daniel Mutuku, a leadership and career coach, together with my co-host, Susan Kiamba, a career coach, Gallup certified strengths coach, and she helps banking professionals get unstuck in their career. How are you doing, Susan, today?
Fantastic, Daniel. How are you?
I'm very well. Today, I have a very interesting scenario here, and I want us to give advice to one of my clients. This is what they wrote here and said, yeah?
Okay.
Yeah, coach. I recently got promoted to a leadership position. I am now in charge of a team. I was excited at first about the position and the new challenge. From the outside, I look like I am progressing well and continuing to climb the ranks in my career. Other people perceive me as successful. However, I feel like a fraud. I have to put in a lot of time and effort to manage the work. I'm really hard on myself when things go wrong. I'm afraid I might be found out, in quotes, yeah, by my boss or coworkers that I am not as good at my job as it seems. What do I do? Please help. What would you say to this person?
Well, I think the first thing I'd tell them is to relax, breathe, relax.
Okay.
Because anyone who gets promoted into a new position, you're going to have some tension. I mean, there is some questioning within you. Can I do this? Will I be able to do this? What if I make a mistake? Now, here's the thing. Even if they do make a mistake, the world will not fall apart. I think we take ourselves sometimes too seriously and behave like everything is world ending, and it's not. So I think first things first, breathe. And then the second thing is, remember why you got hired. They didn't just hire you because you looked good. They hired you because they thought you could do the job. So you need to borrow some confidence in there. What do you think?
I equally think the same. It starts by relaxing and actually getting the right perspective of why, by the way, did I get this job? And secondly, I would also say it would be good for her to find some areas of reassurance. I'm not sure that she's just messing up everything and she hasn't done anything right from the past, right? And also maybe to reassure her, most people have that kind of, I'll call it the imposter syndrome, when they have number one, either a new role, especially in leadership, and even if someone has experience in a role, sometimes they have that kind of imposter syndrome where they feel like, am I not good enough? They question themselves, and if they can get someone who can also they can share with and help them reassure themselves of how good they are, then it would be a good start.
So, I'm a fan of inventories, right? So I am a fan of a skills inventory, fan of a values inventory. I think you also need a success inventory. And I think that's what you're talking about. Like sitting down and listing the times when you've actually succeeded, because for sure you didn't fail in everything. You've actually succeeded before. So what are those successes that you can recall that will boost your confidence?
I once did this exercise, and I always try to ask my clients to do is just sit down and ask yourself, in the last 12 months, what are some of the accomplishments, some of the awards, some of the great things I've done? And when they sit down and list, they are surprised that they have done so much, only that we focus on what we don't do right. And that is what seemed to really what we focus on. So actually, as you say, an achievement inventory would be a good thing.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a good thing. And one of my business coaches likes to say that you can borrow somebody else's confidence. So yes, you sometimes need to borrow somebody else's confidence and belief in you. So here's the thing, we're here talking about imposter syndrome, and I can tell you, Daniel, been there, done that. And I often have to remind myself that I didn't get there because they made a mistake. In fact, the irony is sometimes it's about things you've actually applied for. So you've said, I want to do this job and I think I can do it. I know I can do it. And then you get it and you begin to question, can I actually do it? And so I'll always borrow confidence from people who believe in me. So having cheerleaders in your life, I think, is one of the most critical things, so that this person is actually reminding you that, you know what, you can do this. Don't you remember last year? Don't you remember last month? Don't you remember 6 weeks ago, you actually got this done? And now this is just a show that the people who've given you this opportunity to lead, they believe in you, they've seen your potential, and there's no doubt in their minds that you'll actually make it. So borrowing confidence is, I think, another very critical thing for people to do.
Very interesting. As I was doing my research, I actually came across an article that outlined 5 types of imposter syndrome, and I would want to know what you think about it. So the first one is the perfectionist, whereby someone feel as if they're imposter because they haven't done something perfectly. If something is not perfectly done, then, oh, I'm not good enough. I might not supposed to be here. There's also the second one. They talk about the expert, whereby someone feels like because they are not an expert in that area, then they are not the right person to be there. So they feel like they need to have read a lot, to have everything in place for them to be regarded as an expert in that area. The third one was the natural genius, whereby if you feel like this is not a skill that you have naturally, you have to learn it, you have to practice it, you have to really put time and effort for you to be good at it, then you feel like maybe I'm not supposed to be here, maybe I'm just an imposter. And the fourth one, actually this hit home, this is me. Yeah, it is called the soloist. It is also possible that you might feel that imposter syndrome if you find yourself asking for help. And so the fact that you are asking for help is like thing to show that you are incompetent in that area. I really find it hard to ask for help, but I've learned it's something that it's not looked at as something which is bad, or and it's actually a superpower kind of. And the last one is the imposter syndrome. They call the super person. That this type of imposter syndrome involves somebody believing that they must be the hardest working to be able to reach the highest level. So they are putting themselves that they need to be the super person to do everything and anything right. Otherwise, they feel like as if they're an imposter. I don't know what you think about that.
Well, I can relate to perfectionists because I usually like to say I'm a recovering perfectionist.
Okay.
Everything must be perfect before I actually move on. And if it's not perfect, then there's something absolutely wrong. So I can definitely relate to that. But even the others, when I think of situations I've seen at work where a leader is either thinking I must absolutely be the expert. And the truth is, and I think you agree about this, you don't actually have to be the expert to lead. Because leadership is not about expertise. Leadership is essentially about influence and inspiring people to actually get work done. So I can relate with those different types of imposter syndrome. I have seen it in action. And I think awareness and self-awareness is always step one. So like the way you've realized you can be a bit of a soloist. So and the way I realize I can be a bit of a perfectionist. So self-awareness, I think, is step one to figuring out that this is imposter syndrome. It's just showing up differently from the way I actually know it.
Yeah. Actually, I was listening to another podcast and they said one of the characteristic or qualities of a great leader, of these great leaders, is self-awareness. So I would say you're in the right place. You have been able to notice, or now you're aware that you are suffering from this imposter syndrome, which is the first step. Then the next step would be how then do we help you, or how do you take steps to be able to overcome that? I have several ideas, and I would also want to know from you, what do you think? How, of course, the first step was to relax, not to take it so hard on themselves, and actually know that a new role will come with a lot of expectation and anxiety. But I also feel it will be good for them also to share it, as I mentioned, share your feelings with someone that you trust, so that you can have more of a rational reflection of you and how is it that people are perceiving you. You might be thinking they're all looking at you, waiting for you to fall. But if you have someone who can give you direct feedback, it will be assuring. The other thing is, don't focus so much on what you don't do right. actually ask yourself, what is it that I've done right? I think that comes in that list of uh, an inventory of your achievement and taking baby steps. Don't expect to know everything and have everything right from the word go. Just take baby steps, see what works, what doesn't, and of course, learn and grow as you progress. What do you have to say?
Absolutely. I agree with you on those. What I'd add on is two things. So, one, silence the voices,
Mhm.
because there'll always be some voices in your head that tell you, you can't do this, you're a fraud, they'll find out, you have to be perfect. And so, you need to ask yourself, whose voice is that? Because sometimes we are living under the shadow of other people's voices, such that it drowns out our own voice that is trying to come up and remind us of our achievements and come up and remind us of the things that we have done well. So when you recognize one of those thoughts that is not true, silence it, because it's probably not your voice. It's probably somebody somewhere before who has said you, and then we make lots of jokes and tell people, so you think you've reached, eh? So, that kind of joking, and sometimes people take it to heart. So silence those voices. And secondly, adopt a growth mindset. Accept that you are not there yet. Because in truth, there's no one who has mastered the art or the race or the science of leading. You lead one day at a time, one step at a time, one person at a time. And making mistakes is part of just that growth journey. So embracing the growth journey and embracing that you're not there yet, and recognizing that you will do some work to get you to the next level. And even when you get there, you won't be there. So you keep on growing, and you'll keep on learning, and you'll keep on becoming better and better at leading others. Those are my thoughts.
Yeah, that leads me or reminds me to a scenario. Actually, one of the jobs I had moved from a national school to an international school, and my day one was just pathetic. I actually questioned myself, am I in the right place? I think the students knew this is a new teacher. They want to just teach him a lesson. And yeah, I was small physically, my body was small, almost some of the students bigger than me, and they gave me hell on earth on day one. And I actually
Yeah.
asked myself, did I make the right decision, or should I just go back to what I'm used to? So also know that whenever you are outside your comfort zone, that is the only place where growth takes place. But we might tend to go back. We want to go back to our comfort zone where everything is familiar. We know everything as it is, but also embrace that and say, maybe this is just a way of stretching myself, getting outside the comfort zone, and this is the only place I will grow.
Spot on, spot on. I'm with you on that one, Daniel.
Okay, thank you. I really appreciate you joining me on this podcast to help this client of ours. And what are your parting shot as we close it up?
My parting shot is everything takes time. So extend yourself grace to grow into whatever role that you're in. So if you're newly promoted into a leadership position, give yourself some time. Don't rush it. Work it out day by day and step by step. You will eventually get there. You will eventually get the hang of things.
Thank you very much. And also maybe to add and say, imposter syndrome is real. Don't feel as if you're the only one who is feeling it, but taking the right step to deal with it would be the best thing. Thank you very much. And until our next episode, we'll see you then. Are you facing any leadership, career, or professional challenge? Feel free to share it with us. I, together with my expert guest, we will guide you, advise you, and share with you some of the insights that we have gathered over these years to help you overcome that challenge. Drop us an email, that is podcast@leadersonpoint.com. And as we give you advice, we will schedule it to one of our upcoming episodes. The email is podcast@leadersonpoint.com. Also, make sure you subscribe to this podcast. And until our next episode, we are out.